This is 01:03 hours UK time, midnight 03 GMT on Sunday, the 14th of August 2022. This is the Baby Angel Geronimo editions of the KHOODEELAAR television channel being broadcast only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, and not on cable platforms. Among the out updates that we shall be doing, of course, are the issues of the treachery and grand theft done against Pakistan by the crooks Nawaz Sharif and Asif Ali Zardari et al., as outlined in a landmark new campaign rally held at the Hockey Stadium in Lahore in Pakistan on Saturday, the 13th of August. And Imran Khan also announced a list of venues that the Pakistan Tehreek Insaf will hold jalsas or large gatherings starting next week as part of the theme of the Haqeeqi meaning. The Haqeeqi or Haqiqat, the matlab, the real meaning of Pakistan, and that includes Karachi and Rawalpindi. And there are every day, every time there is a rally, there is at least one new campaign song being added to the list, which must boast now more than 100. This is something very new in the history of campaigning in Pakistan post August 1947. Although the quote campaigning events that took place during the years August 1947 up to, let's say, December 1970 in the then East Pakistan were not about the meaning of Pakistan really. They were about denying the existence of Pakistan in order to suit the interests, that actually came from the other side of the river or the border. The Research and Analysis Wing, also known as RAW, the main part of the Indian security and intelligence operation that counters the Pakistan's inter-services affairs ministry or whatever operations, ISI, which is closely controlled by the Pakistan Army, at least which is supposedly controlled by the Pakistan Army. The Imran Khan announcement about the big jalsas, to be held across Pakistan starting next week, is going to be developing the theme of the meaning of Pakistan. Pakistan ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah. Tere mere rishta kya? La ilaha illallah. This is the theme which no formally, officially, conventionally known Islamic party so far in Pakistan has done in the same way or in any remarkably similar way that Imran Khan has done. So there is something in that new feature which we shall develop the analysis of. Now, in the 1960s, Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani, Sher Bangla, Mr. Fazlul Haq, two of those giants, visited the Seelot town and addressed gatherings in the very tight spaced registry market. But like Neeraj Chaudhary, Autobiography of an Unknown Indian, these rallies addressed by Maulana Bashani, Sher Bangla Fazlul Haq, and Hussain Shahid Sahrawardi, they attracted huge numbers of people. Huge numbers of people. And the main reason why they attracted so many people were the still very active political vigor and personality shown by this. So we shall be continuing on this one. Just let's take a 1 minute. 1 minute. I shall be off the screen for 1 minute. So, in the Lahore Hockey Stadium, in extreme heat, the numbers of people attending has been unbelievable. And one of the Indian so-called non-Hindutva peddling outlets called The Print has shown the true color that it focused on the fact that to make the Jalsa or the gathering take place in a big space like the hockey stadium, the structure, the enclosures of the stadium had to be tampered with, and some of these structures had to be removed. That is what the print found most remarkable about the Jalsa. No wonder that for 75 years, Indian so-called secularists have sucked up to the Hindutva agenda and have poured poison against the very idea of Muslims having a state. As Imran Khan has repeated today as well, that is Saturday, the 13th of August, Muhammad Ali Jinnah said, as Imran Khan paraphrased from a very poor quality video of a very short statement made in English by Jinnah. Jinnah said that we the Muslims are fighting, we've been fighting for the freedom from the British Empire and imperialists, for freedom, not to become enslaved to the Hindus. Now, Imran Khan should have said the Hindutva agenda. To say that just Hindus without any qualification makes Imran Khan come across as if he is against Hindu people or people of Hindu religion. There should not be any objection to Hindu people or Hindu religion. What there should be objection to is Hindutva, which is complete distortion and perversion of the Hindu religion or religious myths and mythologies. I think Imran Khan has got a lot of linguistic lessons to be kind of provided to him. It is amazing that despite the fact that Shabazz Gill and others who are known as kind of qualified quote lawyers, some of the phrases and words that Imran Khan has been using left the audience, unprepared audience, not fully informed, and the target is not accurately hit. This is not a criticism, but this is a kind of suggestion. Another speaker today that I have not seen before at any of the PTI rallies said that Imran Khan had been sent by God to be the leader of Pakistan's revolution, Haqeeqi Pakistan, but also as the symbol at the front of the reawakening or reorganization of the Islamic world. His phrase was Islamic world. Now, these are heavy-duty phrases and heavy-duty kind of claims. They're much overdue, and I think that what they should be organizing is to disseminate these in ways that actually are compatible with contemporary linguistic expressions. And by expressions, I mean that the instant kind of utterance or mentions of these phrases must come across as countering the lies and corruption and criminality of the anti-Muslim kind of liars that are lying, hiding in wait for any excuse to undermine the Muslims and the Islamic democratic awareness. What what the speaker said was again spot on according to his perspective, but they are missing the international kind of platform. What they're saying, mainly they're saying things in the linguistic framework that speakers and people who understand the various vocabulary coming from Arabic, Persian, and some Sanskrit may understand, but those are not present in the vocabulary of the political discourse done in the West mainly. The West is the one that is the source that has imported or exported the false regime, that is the imported regime that the Pakistani campaigners are saying namanzoor. And the references to Boris Johnson by Imran Khan in the context of Boris Johnson, Imran Khan saying that the fact that Boris Johnson has been subjected to the ouster by his own party shows the operation of the what Imran Khan says rule of law in Pakistan. Now that is not true. That is factually absolutely not true. But before I go into the explanation as to why it is not true, it could not be true anyway, because the concept of rule of law without a moral dimension, ethical dimension, can leave the assertion of rule of law exposed to being abused by the Nazis and fascists. Because when Hitler gave his Nuremberg fascist kind of speech, he was speaking as an elected leader, or he was speaking as a leader of the most popular, electorally most popular kind of outfit in the country at the time, in Germany at the time. And among the Nazis were highly, quote, schooled scholars, but they didn't make any difference. They didn't bring the moral or ethical dimension to counter the Nazis' ideology or ideological background, their racist background, their murderous, genocidist, massacring backgrounds and intentions. And the role of those Jews who collaborated with the Nazis also needs to be updated, because the fact that Ken Livingstone Livingstone in London got hold of a bit of the information about the Jewish collaborators of the Nazis with the Nazis was used to the full against him. So much so that Livingstone was totally exhausted and ousted from the Labour Party. Well, the Labour Party was destroyed by the forces of evil that abused the ordinary people's perception that denying the Holocaust or attacking the victims of the Holocaust was unacceptable, which is correct. Jeremy Corbyn, as we say and we have said, politically and intellectually was a low caliber individual, and he was never fit for the task that the evidence in the country demanded of the opposition Labour Party leader. Having said that, Corbyn was not evil. Corbyn was ignorant in many ways, but was not really evil. And many of the things that Corbyn said while he was still in place as the leader of the opposition Labour Party in the UK House of Commons, many of the things Corbyn said in that capacity he had been saying for years before, like for the various tokenistic expressions of solidarity for the people of Palestine. And as I said, no matter how Corbyn solidarized with the people of Palestine, that solidarity, to my knowledge and to the knowledge or to the experience of the people on the ground, the people being shelled and bombarded and bombed by the Israeli state, those people have not been spared the attacks. And in Corbyn's ritualistic almost assertion that he was a supporter of the people of Palestine, left out all the development, that is, all the kind of additional packages and the luggages or baggages that the abusers of the idea of the defense of the Semitic people indulge in. That is the note there, Semitic. When they say anti-Semitic amounts to anti-Jewish, they of course commit a complete, absolute, utter ignorance. Semitic people are not a religion-based people. Semitic people are also Muslims. A large number of people in the Palestine area resemble in appearance many Jewish people. So they are not Jewish, but they are Semitic. Now we shall move to this, we shall come back to this later. But during the Saturday kind of news round or the running orders, there was a mention, or there are mentions of congenital liar Boris Johnson being mentioned as one of the quote world leaders, expressing words of condemnation against the reported attacker of Satan Rushdie on Friday in New York. Now, Boris Johnson is not a world leader. This is absolutely untenable stupidity on the part of the Times. How the fuck do they keep doing this? Johnson is not never has been a fucking world leader. Johnson is unfit to be even a kind of regional, provincial quote leader. He was a thug. While he was at the University of Oxford, he was a member of the thuggish Bullingdon Club. I have re-edited that and I call it Bullying Done Club. In that Bullingdon Club, they had other members of the Conservative Party like George Osborne, who became the so-called finance minister while David Cameron was the fronter of the Conservative government. So Johnson was a bully, a thug, while at so-called university. And Johnson remains a thug and a bully. And Johnson remains, especially in the context of the praise that they have been sort of issuing for Satan Rushdie. Johnson is the one who has asserted that the Muslim victims of his serial attacks on Muslims do not have the same rights as he does of expressing his opinion. Think about that. We shall come back and cover all of that later. Now, we go to Kailashtilla. Kailashtilla is the little hillock in the Gulabganj area, which is where I come from, and it's situated in the village, between the village of Naliuri and adjoining areas near Dakhadukin, where I went to school. I did my high school in Dakhadukin School, Doctoral School, while it was based in the Dakhadukin market, but the school became known as Dakhadukin after I think effectively we left. And it is situated in the location where it is now. Now, not far from this location is the hillock where another saint is buried in eternal rest. And that saint and Kailashtilla saint, their hillocks are spiritually connected. It's a parallel line that is physically invisible, but it's very much connected. And it is said that of the 360 scholars and spiritual followers of the Saint Shah Jalal, all the followers have been buried in various parts of Seelot, and they are connected by invisible kind of links. So we shall talk more about the invisible links another time or maybe later, but this one is about Kailashtilla. So Kailashtilla has been used by the then Pakistan government, East Pakistan government. They did the gas exploration during the 1950s and early 1960s. And in 1962, it was confirmed that the Kailashtilla area had a gas field. And the gas extraction began from Kailashtilla in the early 1980s. It took that many years, but there were interruptions also because of the 1971 events. Now, Kailashtilla, according to Kutubuddin, who is in Naliuri, his village home, there has been rainfalls have been heavy rains. And according to him, the uplands parts of the area have been kind of going through subsidence. They've been subsiding, including that, and also about 1.5 miles to the north, a place called Darabor, and other places that we shall be listing later in due course. And there is no appearance in the media that I've checked. There is no appearance of a recognition on the part of the Bangladesh Petro-Bangla authorities about the danger and the landslides that have been happening. It is typical behavior by the bureaucracy that is operated in Bangladesh. In place, I can call them, but they're not really functioning, dysfunctional. Now, I said to Kutub that we'll be talking about the serious contribution that these gas fields are making economically to the economy of the state of Bangladesh. Now, there are three gas fields within the area. One is Kailashtilla, and one is to the east of Seelot town in Jointapur, in Horipur, and one is to the east of my village or my area, which is my village is on to the east of the river Kushiara or Kuyara. And a few miles to the east of that is Biani Bazar gas field. So these are three gas fields within my kind of environmental geological kind of reach. And it is astonishing that during the 50 years that Bangladesh has, quote, existed, well, the gas was discovered, the Kailashtilla gas was discovered in 1962. So it's like since 10 years before Bangladesh came into being, Pakistan Gas Corporation, or the gas exploration wing of the Pakistan government's relevant ministry, successfully identified the gas there. But in the 1970 election so-called campaign, the main campaigners, the Awami League, because the numerical majority of their membership, they never mentioned any of these. They never mentioned the finds, the gas and other underground resources that had been found. My father and my uncle, I mean, well, two of my uncles and my father, the three of them, out of four brothers that lived. One was the civil servant, the administrator, the commissioner, etc., etc. My father and the other two variously worked as architects, oil engineers, and yes. And so my father was one of the founding engineers at the Fenchugonjo kind of operation. We'll come to that later. So all of these took place during Pakistan. I went to the Fenchugonjo operation in the late 1950s. I didn't go to Chittagong, but Chittagong, the Karnafuli pepper production operation, which was a huge operation, and my father was a big kind of engineer at that operation. And my father was also involved in the Khulna project. All of these happened in the 1950s. And yet the Awami League never mentioned any of that. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because in the silence, there is absent no reference in the media, no reference in the political kind of arena of all these very serious, significant resources. And there was, of course, in Kumil, in between Akhauda and Brahmapur. What is this place? It's Brahmanbadia. There is the Titash gas, which my uncle, who is just younger to my father, was an engineer at. And I visited the area, but not for long. So all these silences about these resources during the so-called agitation for autonomy, they never said independence, they said autonomy, meant that there has been a complete and absolute hole, a black hole left about the resources that inevitably, logically would be controlled by whoever controlled the government or the powers of the state. And without any recognition of these resources being present, available, there would be no discussion as to who got the benefit of the resources. In an East Pakistan at that time, in the parlance of the 1960s, because the language, the freedom or independence would be treason. So they use the word provincial disparity, etc. Now, it is worth a lot of money, that is, in addition to the significantly big single biggest amount of money being sent to Bangladesh by the people. Bangladesh is working in the Middle East, in the United Kingdom, USA, Canada, other Western countries. The sheer solidity of the money, the cash, the resources being brought into Bangladesh by people from Seelot is astoundingly, uniquely big. So when Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury used primitive language to denounce the people of Seelot, the Seeloti so-called aware persons, like the ethnicity-linked media operatives, have been silent. They have not been silent literally, they have been silent in substance. We should be talking about the link between Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury or the resources, the natural resources that the Seeloti people are kind of donating or allowing to be collected by the state of Bangladesh, in addition to the international currency that the expatriate Bangladeshis are contributing to the Bangladesh state. This is something that has to be taken account of. Now, there is a reference to this man, Surat Mia. Surat Mia was, of course, murdered in the then Dhaka airport, and Surat Mia was murdered by beating by a gang of men and women, airport workers, who had demanded huge sums of money as bribe for doing what they were already paid to do. Let the passenger pass on. That is, let the passenger go through the security, etc. Surat Mia was a man in his 30s. By all accounts, he was an effectively successful business person in the northeast of England, and he came from an area called Jagannathpur, who is one of the single most important exporter of people to the UK, Jagannathpur. Now, a man called Abu Tahir, who has the name online, Khalam Chaudhry, became a name. I repeat, Abu Tahir or Khalam Chaudhry became a name recognizable by the people in the UK Bangladeshi community, simply because Abu Tahir made it his business to get the maximum publicity blood out of the tragic Surat Mia's murder. Now, in the last few weeks, Abu Tahir has posted a promotion for Mahi Firdaus Jalil on the Channel S outlet on the satellite, where Firdaus Jalil apparently presented an edition of his, quote, reality with Mahi Jalil or whatever. Now, listening to the contents of the broadcast, or listening to the relevant contents of the broadcast, it is absolutely clear to me, reasonably, on the basis of reasonable test of perception, observation. It is very clear that neither Abu Tahir nor Mahi Fardaus nor any of the other so-called guests had the slightest idea about what they were talking about. What do I mean? I don't mean that they didn't mention Surat Mia. They did mention Surat Mia, but they were not talking on that occasion only about Surat Mia. They were talking about later victims when 6 or 7 other Bangladeshis, overseas Bangladeshis, being murdered as they returned to Bangladesh. And all of them identical or similar to the circumstances in which, similar, not exactly same, in which Surat Mia was murdered. Now, in his Facebook post on the so-called edition of the Mahi Firdaus reality, Abu Tahir says that in conclusion, the participants urged, I'm paraphrasing of course, participants urged the formation of a special tribunal to provide justice for these people and for Surat Mia. Now, Abu Tahir is known for making bogus statements, pretending those bogus statements to be treated as serious and as with substance. There is no record anywhere in the whole of the known legal jurisdictions that has got high courts and whatever courts and tribunals. There is no record, there is no precedent that forming a tribunal to investigate murders that have been taking place over the last 30 years could possibly produce justice for the victims, let alone for their relations. I have put a question to Abu Tahir, and I shall elaborate on the question again, and then I shall update on his response, but I'm not depending on his response. I am saying that whether it is made by Abu Tahir, alias Kalam Chaudhuri, or anybody else, that edition of the Mahi Firdaus Jalil, reality with Mahi Firdaus Jalil, was an outrageous insult to the memories of the victims and also the insult to the real people campaigning for an end to violence by the Bangladesh state agency or the airport employees when they are in contact with innocent people returning to Bangladesh ports, including Seelot, Dhaka, and other places. I think we shall be talking about this for a long time yet to come. Now, this edition has been ongoing for 44 minutes. We shall be talking for another few minutes, but at this time I say that we shall take a look at the newspapers of Saturday. Newspapers of Fleet Street in the UK, and it is frightening how complete is their obsession against Muslims and against Islam, and how callous these papers and their editorial policymakers are to the depth of depravity on the part of the papers and on the part of the politicians in wantonly, brazenly neglecting the impact of the environment, impact of the environmental catastrophe that George Injustice Eustace and Christine, the criminal murderess, Middle Miss, the so-called chief bat, who were among the leading perpetrators of the conspiracies against the baby angel Geronimo for 4 years. We shall be talking about all of these in due course, and we shall be doing so after taking a look at the newspaper front pages. Before we do that, I'm going to take a break from the screen. I'm not going to be in front of the camera. Now, the newspaper that I'm going to look at first, the newspaper dated the Saturday, the 13th of August, has this two-line heading. Rushdie stabbed up to 15 times in on-stage attack. And then it says in the subheading, author flown to hospital with neck injuries after assault at New York theater. It is in the Times that the congenital liar Boris Johnson is being painted as a world leader. So this is the kind of Times. I mean, I don't know whether it can be captured by the camera. It can't because of the angle and the screen we are using. Then we got, that is the headline I'm just looking at first. Now, there is no similarity between that one and the piece in the Telegraph magazine, whose cover features 90-year-old Antonia Fraser. I won't call her Lady Antonia Fraser. Antonia Fraser is another racist bitch in that piece, because she is the latest racist recruit to be hauled in to add her gravitas, alleged gravitas, to the idea that if she is mentioned as the source of condemnation of Meghan Markle, then Meghan Markle will be finished. I mean, there is no limit to the perversity and the racist stupidity on the part of the Little England racists when it comes to their desperate bid every single day to find any excuse, any pretext to have a go at Meghan Markle. And the pattern is that they are painting Meghan Markle as the manipulator who is exploiting Harry. Now let's take a pause. Meghan Markle didn't have to kind of exploit Harry at all, because before she met Harry, Meghan Markle was an established movie actor herself in Hollywood. So she wasn't as if she was not known or something. And in fact, the reason why Piers Morgan has been running a vilification program funded by Dirty Digger Murdoch against Meghan Markle is because Meghan Markle was approached by Piers Morgan. And Piers Morgan's approach was snubbed by Meghan Markle. And Piers Morgan interprets that as Meghan Markle snubbing him because she met a prince. Suppose that were the case, so what? Doesn't she have the right to snub a complete pathetic piece of absolute rubbish like Piers Morgan? If there was a referendum as to whether Meghan Markle was entitled to snub a parasite called Piers Morgan, if there were a referendum among right-thinking people, that is, I think then the majority of the people or a significant numbers voting and taking part would support Meghan Markle. In fact, despite the fact that the Daily Mail, Daily Fail of the day, Daily Rothermere, Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday had been trying to pervert the various images of Meghan Markle and her statements, etc. And the fact that there was an ongoing propaganda war between the Mail newspapers and Meghan Markle, that gave excuse for the scum to run more stories and more stories and more stories about the slightest, smallest aspect of Meghan Markle's life. The excuse that Piers Morgan has published, the same excuse he has published in a retailed form, he has retailed it in many ways, saying that effectively he says that Meghan Markle actually snubbed him. Now, why would she not snub him? I mean, his present wife, Celia Walden. Celia Walden is the daughter of a Conservative MP, I think the late George Walden. And before she was lumbered with Piers Morgan, she was already writing a column in the Daily Boris Johnson Graph. Now that is because her father was a Conservative, so Conservative MP's daughter was being done a favor by the paper. So anyway, what she has done in an embarrassing series of public kind of confessions about meeting Piers Morgan and then living with him is to literally expose herself. She says that when they were driving during the first kind of time, the early period of their meeting, courting or whatever, Piers Morgan couldn't concentrate on whatever they were talking about because Piers Morgan, according to Celia Walden, was looking at Celia Walden's legs too much. Now, Morgan is in his 50s and Walden is not far behind. Why on earth would any thinking person be interested in that kind of pornographic details about the two of them? Unless, of course, she was at Piers Morgan's behest, suggesting that she has legs to look at. This is prostitution. So a man of that kind of desperation is being given a platform solely because he can have a go at Meghan Markle. Now, Antonia Fraser. Antonia Fraser left her husband for Harold Pinter. And her own children, according to this article itself, didn't think much of her. So, what kind of moral authority does Antonia Fraser have to opine on whether Meghan Markle was right or wrong in giving an interview as broadcast on the Oprah Winfrey show? What on earth has that got to do with anything that Antonia Fraser wants to have an opinion on? Now, going back to the Telegraph of the Saturday, the headline is Rushdie stabbed at literary festival. And they got a big picture on the front page. And the Weekend FT has got a big picture on the front page of Satan Rushdie, and the main heading on top of his picture is Rushdie stabbed, satanic verses author attacked 33 years after fatwa. What they are meaning about the 33 years is, of course, the fatwa of Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, when the Iranian revolutionary students succeeded in taking over the American embassy in Tehran. And as it turned out, the American embassy contained huge volumes and quantity of resources. Having said all of that, why isn't there a similar movement about the Elgin marbles being returned? There is a movement of sorts, but it's nowhere near being organized to earn the kind of title that they crave. After Celia Walden's legs were exhibited, it was noted that Moron and Celia Walden were heading for the very same thing. So we're going to go off this camera and look for some evidence, and then I'll come back again. So back to Celia Walden and her legs. The Telegraph also has a record of kind of selling pornography by disguising it as reality kind of writing. Staff member called Bryony Gordon. Bryony Gordon's pieces were nothing but detailed diaries of how she slept with any number of people. That is journalism. In the Telegraph, that is supposed to be the same paper, same title anyway, as was the name of the paper when Bill Deeds was involved in the running of it. Was Bill Deeds the one that wrote The Spook? So Bill Deeds would be horrified, wouldn't he? If he even heard of the likes of Bryony Gordon being given a space such as she was given. Now, why was Bryony Gordon given that space? Because the Telegraph has been acting as a brothel newspaper. It runs the brothel but calls it a newspaper. The Murdoch scum is running the same, almost same heading about Rushdie. Rushdie stabbed in neck. And the Weekend Eye has got fears for Rushdie as he is stabbed outside on stage in New York. And the Mirror has got Rushdie stabbed. Author attacked in US 33 years after Iran tried him. So the Daily Mirror has got Rushdie stabbed, and they got a inside pages doing the details, but the same details, which means that they're all subscribers to the news agencies, etc., and they're running the laziest possible Friday night writing this or getting this story together. Because the Mail and the Metro have very similar headings. And Rushdie has got a piece, 2-page spread in the Daily Mail. I'm stupidly optimistic. Even through those bad years, I always believed there would be a happy ending. The courageous but haunting words of brilliant author on his life in hiding from fatwa. Now, this is Helen Weathers. This is a stupid piece because Rushdie is not a brilliant author. He's not brilliant at all. He's a dishonest liar parading as a writer. And they've got a picture of this woman. He has been the woman who called him selfish and who actually, I think they separated in 2007 or something, but the Lakshya or something. And he said about marrying her that marriage was a bad investment. Asked to explain, he said that he didn't have any sex with her. However accurate that is or not, the woman who had tracked down by others gave her version of what happened between them. And she said enough in order for Rushdie to accept her saying that she ever either received money or had any sexual relationship with her. So what time is it now? 1:07 hours UK time. So we shall continue for a bit to cover the other items that are accessible. We don't have the Guardian, and we didn't have the. What is the missing paper? Anyway, the Guardian is the only significant one that we are missing. So this is the Telegraph which is started. So what the what does this mean? All the newspapers have the biggest possible line on the finger, whatever finger they can use, about the taking of clothes. No, I won't take any medication by taking my normal attire off. What? What did you say? One of the birds that was nesting near the baby angel Geronimo has flown away at the silent. So we shall be actually ending this program at this stage. We shall continue on all these topics. This is just 10 minutes after 1 in UK time, and 00 hours, I think, 009 hours, London, UK. It doesn't matter what time, as long as it does arrive. Okay, so we come to an end to this one, temporary